Welcome to my channel. Please enjoy the video.
Vallejo rapper Andre Mac Dre Hicks wasn't on MTV, on magazine covers, or even in movies. But his clever hardcore rhymes had an underground flowing. And when he was killed on a Kansas City freeway in November, radio stations mourned him at length. Mac Dre was big enough for that. Police investigators say 34-year-old Hicks was shot in a financial dispute, but the rumor mill said something more sexier, that a West Coast Midwest rap war had flared, that a notorious Kansas City rapper dubbed Fat Tone had taken out Hicks. In the world of hip-hop, police say that bad blood often means good business. 6 months later, police say a San Francisco rapper promoter named Mac Minister and a good friend of his avenged Hicks in Las Vegas by firing a 33 assault rifle rounds into 2 Kansas City men, including Anthony Fat Tone Watkins. The 2 San Francisco men were indicted on murder charges earlier in that month. 2 days later, a 21-year-old call girl who was in Las Vegas with them turned up dead in Fairfield, shot in the head. The violent story pierced together through interviews and court records reflects the blurry line between rumor and reality in the world of underground rap. Kansas City Police Detective Everett Babcock, who cleared Watkins and Hicks' death, feared that the rumors following the shooting may turn deadly. The tragedy of the whole thing is that assuming that the woman that was killed in Fairfield was killed for retribution for being a witness. That's 3 people dead over a financial matter, over an amount of money that wouldn't pay for a week in Vegas, said the detective, although he would not elaborate on the alleged dispute except to say that Watkins was not a suspect in Hicks' death. The saga began quietly in the early morning hours of November 1st, 2004, as Hicks rode in a white van driven by a friend through Kansas City. He had been performing in the city, and he and other Bay Area rappers enjoyed a second home popularity there. Hicks, who grew up in the Vallejo Hardscramble Country Club Crestwood neighborhood, first gained the radio airplay as a teenager with the song title, ironically, Too Hard for the Radio. He had long been the subject of rap world rumors. His mother, Wanda Salvato, said she heard about her son's death at least 3 times before. Despite serving a 5-year prison sentence for a conspiracy to commit to robbing a bank, Hicks was no thug, his mother said. His problems were behind him when he was killed. He talked about mentoring teenagers to keep them flying straight. He had recently moved to Sacramento and owned a record label. Still, as his driver moved through Kansas City in the dark a year ago, a stolen black Infiniti G36 pulled alongside of them and opened fire, police said. The van swerved across a grass median about 4 freeway lanes and then crashed into a ditch. Detective Babcock said that the investigation was hampered earlier by the reluctance of Hicks' travel companions to cooperate. Some, when approached, even pretended they didn't even know Hicks. But it wasn't long before the rumors started to fly about that rap war and Fat Tone Watkins. Fat Tone Watkins was a large figure, literally and figuratively, after he was shot and wounded in 2003 when he was just 22 years old. On his next album cover, it showed him sitting up in a hospital gurney flashing his middle finger. He was Fat Tone, the untouchable one. He was once arrested for killing a pregnant woman, although those charges were eventually dropped. Every shooting that happened in Kansas City, you would get calls saying that Fat Tone did it. His name always came up anytime a body dropped. But when it came to Mac Dre's death, the rumors began to have legs. Soon after Hicks was murdered, Watkins was summoned to the Kansas City Police headquarters for an interview. I told him we were expecting retribution, Babcock recalled. He said, I'm watching out for myself. Several months later, Watkins denied in a rap song that he even killed Hicks, but the rumor was that he admitted it in his rap song, Babcock said. Early on May 23rd, a security guard found the body of 24-year-old Watkins in a housing development that was under construction in Southwest Las Vegas. He had been shot up about 20 times. He was slumped over the front seats of a blue 1992 Toyota Tercel, according to the grand jury testimony. A few feet away, 22-year-old Jermaine Atkins, who was a friend, and he was a fugitive, and he was on the run from federal cocaine selling charges, also lay dead after being shot at least 13 times. At the time of the killing, San Francisco promoter Andre Mac Minister and his friend Jason Mathis and that call girl were in Las Vegas, according to police. Mathis had rented a house less than 5 blocks away from the murder scene. Mathis had been with his 28-year-old girlfriend named Lauren, who came from a small town near Payson in Utah, and she may have been turning tricks for Mathis. Slaying victims Watkins and Atkins were in Las Vegas for a Snoop Dogg concert at the Palms, and they were staying at the MGM Grand. According to Las Vegas Police Detective Todd Hendricks, Watkins told his mother and his girlfriend that Dogg had promised him a meeting with Snoop Dogg. Just hours before the killings, Hendricks said that MGM Grand cameras recorded Dogg leaving the hotel with Watkins and Atkins. He believes the victims were driven to the neighborhood where they were killed roughly 80 minutes later. According to Mathis' arrest warrant, he later admitted admitted to a friend that he shot Watkins and Atkins to avenge Hicks' killing. Mathis said he shot Watkins and then chased Atkins into the street and shot him and killed him while he was on the ground pleading for his life, the warrant alleged. The Toyota Tercel investigators now say had been given to Dow's girlfriend by a Berkeley activist, a woman who once was a teacher. The car even bore a Bush Lost bumper sticker. Meanwhile, another car, a white Pontiac Sunfire, was spotted speeding away from the scene. A day later, a white 2000 Pontiac Sunfire convertible was found burning in Vallejo, and that registered owner was that call girl, lead Danny Larson. According to Lauren's father, he told the police that his daughter was forced into prostitution by Mathis. He told them he would escort her into various Las Vegas hotels, hiding an AK-47 under his clothing, according to Mathis' arrest warrant. The father also stated to the police that he rescued his daughter once before, in the month before her being killed, but she voluntarily returned to Las Vegas. And there, Lauren was seen in a gun shop just 9 days before the killing. There, she bought ammunition, and it was similar to the ones that was used to kill Watkins and Atkins, according to the grand jury testimony. Dow, then 35, and Mathis, 26, were indicted on November 2nd on 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of conspiracy to commit murder in the deaths of Watkins and Atkins. Mathis was arrested July 12th in San Francisco, where police said he had beaten up his girlfriend. Investigators soon discovered that he was wanted in Las Vegas, where he later pleaded not guilty. Dow remains on the lam, sought out on a no bail warrant issued after that indictment, and may be featured soon on the TV show America's Most Wanted. His attorney, Eric Sunfire, says that his client isn't capable of murder, but admits that Dow is capable of basking in the negative publicity. Larson, meanwhile, ended up in the Bay Area, where she lived out of hotels at times and offered her services as some chick named Elena, and at the time she was promoting all services through Craigslist. Las Vegas investigators tracked her down in July, and during that interview in the San Francisco police station, Hendricks said that he and another detective begged her to cooperate. They even offered her service and assistance to help her regain her life again. She wouldn't stand for it, Hendricks said. She was completely snowed by Mathis. She thought he'd take care of her for the rest of her life. We pleaded with her to get out of there so she wouldn't be harmed. On the night of November 4th, Fairfield police officers went to a quiet neighborhood after the residents reported hearing gunfire. Larson was pronounced dead at the scene from a head wound. A dark-colored SUV was seen speeding away. Soon after, Mathis's Saturn sedan, which Lauren had been driving, turned up burning in Richmond, said Fairfield police. See, the detectives believed that Lauren had very vital information that could be very damaging, and they had to silence her. So the real question is, who really killed Mac Dre? Kansas City detective Everett Babcock arrived at the scene of a murder on the morning after Halloween back in 2004. And there he found a totaled white Dodge Legacy van and was found on the embankment below Highway 71. The area was poorly lit, thanks to a series of streetlights along the west edge of the highway. It appeared as if the van spun sideways, slid around, and went off the road and crashing into a muddy ditch. The driver's side of the van had been found with more than 30 bullet holes, and a man was found shot to death nearby, having been thrown from the vehicle upon impact. The victim had been laying on his back with his left leg straight out and his right leg bent at the knee. That white van allegedly belonged to Salvano Davina. He was a 27-year-old man who prosecutors say was at the head of that trafficking drug ring organization. And the dead body that was found in his van belonged to Andre Hicks, and he was known to the world as Mac Dre, one of the most influential hip-hop artists in history. Despite multiple investigations and a string of alleged retaliation murders that left 3 people dead, and very little is known about the actual circumstances surrounding the death of Mac Dre. The Kansas City Police Department has never arrested or charged anybody with the murder. To be fair, there are pieces of Davala's story that don't quite add up. Like, after witnessing the shooting, Davala said he turned off his phone and took the nearest exit. He went home and went to sleep. This isn't how you'd expect someone to act after witnessing their own van being shot up with a friend and a family member inside. In January of 2021, Davala told the detective that he wouldn't directly comment on his statement. For legal purposes, I'm not sure what to say. I don't want to implicate myself in something that's not true, Davala says. I think someone's got it misconstrued. Based on all of my investigations, it seems to suggest that the statement that Davala gave Detective Babcock was only partially true. He knew what happened to Mac Dre and felt partially responsible, but couldn't bring himself to testify in court. That's why his statement went no further than the investigative reports of Detective Babcock. If you trace the trail of police reports, you'll arrive at the summary of the facts. On the night of Mac Dre's murder, he was supposed to do a club appearance. White Mill hoped that Mac Dre would actually perform instead of just appear in order to make up losses occurred over the weekend. Instead, Mac Dre just showed up late again, only stayed for 30 minutes, and then left without even performing. Davala called his driver and found their location. He called White Bill back and told him then that Mac Dre ended up dead. Davala seems to feel guilty for the role he played in his friend's death and has tried to find ways to tell detectives since getting arrested in 2006. Although he denies it, 2 jailhouse snitches claim that he asked them to vouch for a version of the events that doesn't include the phone calls with White Bill. And he even went so far to tell the detectives that he witnessed the shooting himself and then went home, turned off his phone, and went to bed. This is unlikely, and detectives know it. But why make up a lie like that at all? Unless Davala wanted the truth to be out without implicating himself. I feel so bad because I know Dre's family would want him to get justice, Davala said back in January of 2021. But I just couldn't do it. That's why the prosecution was on my case, and they were so upset with me, and ultimately why they sentenced me to 30 years in prison. Davala continues, I'm truly sorry about not being able to provide the sense of peace for his family and that those guys who weren't held accountable for that senseless crime. Mac Dre was ahead of his time. And this story is really jacked up because he died before he could even reach his full potential. And I don't think he was a part of anything that led him to getting murdered. I think it was a case of mistaken identity. Because remember, Davala was this big kingpin drug trafficker, and he was the owner of the van that Mac Dre was murdered in. I believe the guys that shot the van up was after Davala and not Mac Dre. And whoever Davala pissed off, I believe he actually set Mac Dre up to get killed that night. And the reason he never went in and testified in court or said anybody's name is because he knew that those people were trying to kill him. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Please like the video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, so when I drop new content, you guys will know. Until the next video.